Hey, we're good.
What is up, people? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. Look, it's a week before Thanksgiving, literally one exact week before Thanksgiving. And you know what that means. College football is ending. We're about over halfway through the NFL season. Ari, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We're set for a lot of good NFL games this weekend, college football this weekend. We got the Thanksgiving NFL games that are fun every year, a week from today. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to in a lot of different sports.
You mentioned it. We're just gonna get right into it. We got a loaded slate for you. We're gonna cover the week one. Not week one, week 11 NFL slate, and it starts tonight with our Thursday night matchup between the Titans and Packers. The Titans obviously coming off a pretty close win, I'd say, against the Broncos at home. That Russell Wilson offense just really can't get anything going, and it proved to be costly once again in the end. But some big explosive plays for the Broncos. Really kept this game close. Even the Packers coming off, I would argue, their biggest win of the season, beating Dallas at home, maybe turning the corner for that Packers team, kind of in the hunt for a potential wild card, as we mentioned on Tuesday, instead of a potential division crown that the first place Minnesota Vikings have pretty much taken control of that division. Look, Ari, you have two teams kind of trending in different directions. The Titans, not the greatest offense right now, and then the defense, gives up some explosive plays, but Derrick Henry is still the X factor. And then you look at the Packers, and then they're coming off their best win of the season. What do you like? So, what do you like in this matchup right now? Do the Packers, do we see another Christian Watson breakout game? Do we see Derrick Henry, run through this team? What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an interesting matchup of, Derrick Henry and what he can bring against the Packers run defense that has struggled. I believe that they're a bottom 10 team against the run this year as a defense. So I'm expecting a lot of Derrick Henry tonight. Obviously the passing game's a little bit better with Tannehill than Malik Willis, but still, not great still. And then on the other hand, you got the Packers. And, the Titans have given up a lot of yards, but they're still haven't given up a lot of points for the most part, like we saw with the Chiefs game a week or two ago when Mahomes had 400 yards, but they still went to overtime and held them to 17 points in the regulation. So I think that the Titans can do enough. The last 2 weeks they've registered 77 pressures, which is pretty insane for a 2 game span. So I think we're going to see the Titans get to Rodgers a lot, kind of in the backfield as he's going under center and shotgun. I think that would be the biggest key to the game for both teams is the protection of Aaron Rodgers and how much time he will have in the pocket of finding guys like Christian Watson deep, and Alan Lazard. And then, how they can get Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon going as well in the run game against the Titans' run defense. I have the Titans here. I think they're going to be able to do enough to control the clock with Derrick Henry against a bottom 5 to 10 run defense in the Packers. It's tough to bet on Rodgers after what he did last week against Dallas, but I think that the Titans will have a good game plan to control the clock with Henry and then, get pressure on Rodgers and, make him beat them as opposed to, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, you mentioned the Packers, coming off their biggest win of the season. And, the Titans, they don't really force that many, points on, allow that many points, as you mentioned, on the scoreboard. And, they're playing a top, pretty much a bottom 5, arguably run defense in the Packers this year. And, that just, it's feeding into Derrick Henry's strength right there and like how the Titans really move the ball downfield with Derrick Henry. It's kind of surprising. Green Bay is a 3-point favorite right now at home tonight, but anything could happen. And if we're gonna get the Aaron Rodgers of last week, that's pretty much a big question as well. Pretty much the biggest question, as you mentioned, whether or not the Packers O-line can really protect him well, or the Titans defense can get to him, whether he's in shotgun or under center. And I definitely agree with you. I think that's going to be the X factor in this game. I would love to take the Packers, but I feel like the Titans, will just be able to control the ball and control that clock more. And so I'm going to take the Titans on the road in tonight's game, even though I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than people think. And then heading into Sunday, we start off with the Bears and Falcons. Falcons being 7, traveling to the 4-6 Atlanta Falcons. And look, the Bears, obviously, they are pretty much led by Justin Fields at this point. He is the whole entire offense. We've got to see a lot of, it's kind of like a Lamar Jackson X kind of offense that they're running over there in Chicago with, a lot of tight end usage with Cole Kmet. We saw him get a couple scores last week for the Bears against the Lions, even though they came up just short. And the Falcons, obviously, they're in this kind of wool space right now. Bigger questions about the quarterback play, whether or not Marcus Mariota should be getting the job or Desmond Ridder should be coming in at some point this season. We got to see Cordell Patterson pretty much back into potentially being the lead back again for this Atlanta team. And Ari, look, I feel like this is just going to be, David Montgomery, big game on the ground because, Khalil Herbert's on IR for the next 4 games. And, it's been kind of the Justin Fields show. And I feel like, teams are going to start to adapt to really, limit his scrambling ability and, maybe give the ball more to their running back, which is David Montgomery. But what do you think and what do you expect in this game between, some two defenses that really struggle?
Yeah, I think the story here is ultimately the Bears' offense. You have 2 bad defenses, and you have the inconsistency of the Falcons' offense and Mariota as a passer just being inconsistent. And so that's why I do have the Bears winning this game because they have that one edge on offense. Obviously Field isn't going to run for 140 plus yards every week. He's going to get, limited at some point. But I'm not sure if that's just against the Falcons. And even if he is, I think that they're going to continue to utilize Mooney and Kmet a lot against the Falcons secondary. We have another week of Chase Claypool. We'll see if he can break off a big play at some point. He could this week against the Falcons. And then, with Khalil Herbert placed on IR, it's going to be all Montgomery pretty much in the backfield for the Bears. And he should kind of take advantage of that matchup as well against the Falcons. So I think the Bears offense continues to roll. Their defense is depleted after the trade deadline, so we can see the Falcons have some success as well. But I don't see them outscoring Justin Fields and the Bears in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I feel like the Bears are just going to be too much offensively. They've definitely cemented themselves as one of the better teams offensively this season, with how much they just love to run and how successful that's been all season for them. And then they're going up against, pretty not great run defense that just looked that allowed Dante Freeman to pretty much just go run all over the Falcons last week. And now they got to get ready for David Montgomery at home. I feel like this is definitely going to be a Bears win as well. The Bears, Atlanta's a 3-point favorite according to Vegas, but Vegas is on something. I like the Bears in this one as well. I just think offensively they're going to be too much, and then the Falcons, I feel like they're definitely, it's going to be a very high scoring game. If anything, I take the over in this game. But I feel like the Bears will just get enough done to get the win, and go back up to 4-7 in the road win. Next up, we have.
Well, I had the Browns Bills, but now they got moved to the afternoon, but we can still talk about it.
Yeah, so this whole Browns Bills saga, if you don't know, is already being moved to Detroit due to obviously all the horrible weather that's coming into Buffalo this weekend. There's expected to be near like 6 feet of snow in Buffalo, and this game has officially been moved to Detroit. And since the Lions are playing on the road this week, I don't know the time difference, but I believe it's still in the morning for now. But we're gonna see what happens later. But Browns and Bills is officially moving to Detroit. So I was gonna talk about how this game was gonna be really bad offensively in Buffalo, but now it's kind of the opposite because now they're playing in a dome, obviously, not after dealing with the weather and all that stuff. It's going to be, the battle of the dominant run game of the Browns versus, the Bills, who are coming off a tough loss at home against the Vikings. We all saw that amazing overtime game, game of the year candidate. Now they got to, welcome the the Browns in town, even though ironically the Browns are playing closer. I mean, that's a home game for the Browns. So technically, it's more of a home game for Cleveland, since Cleveland and Detroit are not that far apart. In fact, way closer than Buffalo. Ari, look, the Bills are coming off that tough loss on the road. I feel like you could call that game either way. It was looking like the Bills were going to dominate at home, and then the Vikings came back, forced overtime. Bills forced overtime, and then lost. And the Browns, they coming off a game where they allowed 39 points to that Miami team that we talked about, just very good offensively. What do you expect? And, especially for this Browns team who are kind of in the final weeks of Jacoby Brissett before Deshaun Watson eventually comes back to the team, and ironically, about a couple weeks' time.
Yeah, I think that the Bills do rebound here. You mentioned the Dolphins lost against the Browns. They put up almost 40 points. Browns defense at times has, shown flashes of being solid, at least above average, but they're just not consistent enough. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Josh Allen, and Diggs, Gabe Davis, the run game, and all of that. We saw Dalvin Cook have a big game against the Bills last week, so I think that Chubb will be able to, keep it somewhat close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout at all between these two teams, but I think that in the end, the Bills' offense will be too much, and they will prevail at home in Detroit.
Yeah, it's weird to say that it's going to be in Detroit, obviously, just with all that snow coming in. But you could argue that the new location could be in the Browns' favor, since Cleveland is obviously closer to Detroit. All the Cleveland fans don't have to go to Buffalo; they can go to Detroit, and all that hoopla there. But I definitely agree with you. I feel like the Browns' defense, they definitely got exposed last week against a good Miami offense, and now they're playing another good offense in the Bills, and then also a good defense in the Bills as well. So I feel like this is not going to be a blowout, but I feel like the Bills are going to win pretty comfortably on Sunday in Detroit against the Browns. And then continuing into the morning slate, we have the Eagles going to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Jeff Saturday, 1-0 as a head coach. What a story going on in Indianapolis. A lot of controversy about this hire from, not just people inside the organization, but outside for Jeff Saturday. He was on First Take a week ago, and now he's coaching on the sidelines as the interim head coach for the Colts after they fired Frank Reich. And then Eagles obviously coming off their one and only loss of the season to the Washington Commanders at home. Just a very sloppy game. Jalen Hurts didn't look all his best. Quez Watkins with the fumble off of that deep throw. The controversial, was it a late hit when Taylor Heineke gave up himself? There's so many questions on whether or not they may have changed the game or not. But, in the end, it was still a loss for the Eagles, the first one of the season. And now they got to play against the Colts who, have maybe – gotten some brand new light in their season after a dominant game from Jonathan Taylor on the ground. Matty Ice didn't look horrible. He looked like a better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger. Look, Ari, these two teams, it's interesting because obviously I was going to say this could be a Frank Reich revenge game since he was on the Eagles staff, but he's gone. Carson Wentz is gone. So it's, just the Eagles and Colts on Sunday. And, I would love to take this Colts team, maybe they can get something on the ground going, but I feel like this is a bounce back game for the Eagles. What do you think, and what do you like offensively for the Eagles and Colts?
Yeah, if there is one weakness to the Eagles, it is their run defense. So that is, one reason why the Colts can keep as close as Jonathan Taylor. We saw Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson were a huge reason why the Commanders won last week against the Eagles. But, I still think the Eagles do ultimately rebound. I think it's going to be close, I think, just because of Taylor and what he can do. But, I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Eagles. Push Jeff Saturday to 500 as a career as a head coach. I think, they lost Goddard, but I still think that, A.J. Brown will bounce back. Monte Smith, Miles Sanders, those will be enough to ultimately prevail over the Colts.
Yeah, for the Colts, they're playing. They're going to go from playing one of the worst teams in the NFL in the Raiders to playing one of the best teams in the NFL in the Eagles. And, I'd love to see, Jeff Saturday keep that momentum going, go 2-0, but, you're playing, against one of the most dominant teams offensively. And then you mentioned defensively, they're not good. They're not great on the run. And, they got exposed in the secondary. Darius Slay really exposed them on, Terry McLaurin exposed Darius Slay on Monday. But, I definitely feel like this is an Eagles bounce back game as well. Eagles will get the win at home, on the road in Indy, and, bounce back after a embarrassing loss, I would like to say, on Monday night. We're going to keep going in this morning slate here. We have the Jets and Patriots, both of these teams, I believe, coming off the bye. The Jets, look, obviously they're kind of America's sweetheart right now, kind of like the 2021 Bengals, if I would compare, in my opinion. This Jets team, defensively, one of the best in the league. Sauce Gardner and, what they're doing in that secondary, he's a lockdown. And, these two teams faced each other not that long ago, and Zach Wilson really struggled against the Patriots, could not really get an offense moving, and looked like Bill Belichick just made him look so uncomfortable. But now it's the rematch in New England, and the Patriots have a good run game going with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, that kind of 1-2 combo, even though Ramondre Stevenson's kind of taken more control of that. And then for the Jets, they also have a 1-2 combo after Breece Hall went down with that injury. James Robinson, Michael Carter on that offense, and then obviously Garrett Wilson, who's emerging as a top receiver, alongside, they still have Corey Davis and, the whole Elijah Moore situation. We don't know what's going on there, but I mean, for now, he's still a member of the New York Jets. Ari, look, this is definitely going to be one of the more intriguing games to watch, ironically, this week. The Patriots at home, they kind of know how to beat the Jets, but then, I can't believe I'm saying this, but don't count out the Jets, man. I mean, we can't really count them out anymore. So what do you like in this game between, this run, these two, different kind of styles defensively? Patriots, really just making sure that the quarterback play is not great, and then the Jets, pretty much locking down some sides of the field and trying to establish a run game.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a good one. The divisional game, obviously, between the Jets and the Patriots. Like you said, both coming off their bye. I think it's going to be, a close one, as, most divisional games are. I'm slightly leaning towards the Patriots at home. I think that they're just a little bit more reliable, especially, getting Ramondre Stevenson going, on the run game. And then I think that they should get Damian Harris back, I believe, in this game as well. But like you said, the Jets still have, even though they lost Breece Hall, they still have a formidable duo of Michael Carter and James Robinson. And, Zach Wilson's definitely prone. I want to say, didn't he threw like 3 picks, I think, right? The last time he played the Patriots. So, yeah, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think the Mac Jones is going to be able to do just enough. I probably like the under in this game overall. Two pretty tough defenses. But I think the Patriots do just enough offensively to be able to prevail at home in this game.
I agree with you there. I feel like this Patriots team will do just enough, but I can't really count out the Jets. I mean, they came back against the Browns earlier this season. What makes sure that they're not going to come back on Sunday? And maybe they'll get a different version of what they saw of Zach Wilson from the last time they saw him to this week. But it's obviously in New England, and the New England crowd is going to be loud and present there. And I'd love to take the under as well, but I'm definitely going to lean toward the Patriots at home, just in divisional matchups. They know each other. This is the second meeting in I think about a month. So it's very, very quick turnaround. So these teams are very fresh off knowing each other. So I'm definitely going to lean toward the Patriots in that one as well. Continuing into the morning slate, and I mean, you talk about bad offenses for this game. This game should be total under if you're asking me. I mean, the Rams and Saints. I mean, look, no Cooper Kupp for this Rams team. They're going to be missing their whole entire offense. And then speaking of missing a whole entire offense, I mean, Kamara has been a bust all year. Chris Olave has been inconsistent at times, even though he's kind of been the lead receiver after Michael Thomas went down with turf toe for the season. And, as fragile as he is now, it's crazy to think that this matchup was literally the NFC Championship back in that 2018 season. We all know the controversial no PI call, the rematch in New Orleans, Rams Saints. Look, I wanna go with this Rams team, obviously, just because of the fact that their defense is considerably better than the Saints team, obviously. But you never know at this point. I mean, Stafford, he's not going to have his receiver, and there's still questions on whether or not Stafford's going to be coming back from concussion protocol. It looks like he may, but you never know. And then no Cooper Kupp. The run game has been sluggish all year. They have to depend on guys like Ben Swarnick or whatever his name is. And then for this Saints team, look, Jameis Winston is healthy, but they're still going with Andy Dalton. So it looks like, this maybe Saints team is either hesitant on Jameis, or they're maybe just giving up on the season, already 3-7, really not having any light. I feel like this is a game where if you lose, your season's over for both of these teams. And, I feel like the Saints are going to end up losing and their season's going to be ending, Ari. But what do you think in this game? What do you like anything offensively between the Rams and Saints on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Stafford, that looks like he's going to be able to play barring any setbacks. I'm curious to see if they can get Allen Robinson going at all, without Kupp. They have pretty much no run game. Kamara struggled the last couple of weeks, but he had some big games before the last 2 weeks. So, I don't have any confidence in either offense. And then, like you said, both defenses are solid, but, they get worn out when their offenses can't move the ball consistently at time, for the most part. So I'm leaning towards the Saints at home just because, Kamara struggled the last couple of weeks, but I have more confidence in him getting going than I do in Henderson and Akers and Kyron Williams and that bunch. And, Dalton has looked pretty bad at times. The coach did say that he didn't think Winston would be 100% healthy at all this season moving forward. So it sounds like they're just being super, super cautious in terms of not playing him. But you'd think that they would put him on IR at that point and not even have him as the backup. But, who knows what's going on with that situation. But I'm leaning towards the home team here. And the running back I have more confidence in. I have more confidence in Olave than, any Rams receiver. So that's what it comes down to for me. But it's probably going to be a pretty ugly game offensively for both sides.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be one of the more uglier games offensively for both sides. You talk about this Rams team and how the offense has pretty much been stalling throughout the past couple of weeks. We talked about how, Cooper Kupp is not available anymore as a receiver, so they have to rely on Allen Robinson, who, was their big acquisition in the offseason and, has proven to really not do anything and not be anything that they wanted for him. And, just a lot of, disappointment there. And then you look at the Saints and, there's been offensive struggles as well. And, the defense really can't, stop them on maybe on second and third down. Last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jaylen Warren having a good game on the ground. So maybe they'll have a run game. We'll see. But, I definitely like the Saints at home as well. I just think the better offense in the Saints will have a better game. Kamara will have a bounce back game. Olave will still, be one of the lead receivers, if not the lead receiver for the Saints team. And I definitely expect a bounce back for the Saints against a struggling Rams team that can't really get an offense going. And now they lost their whole entire offense. So now it's kind of dependent on their defense to win them games. And I just don't think they'll get it done on Sunday. And still in the morning slate here, the Lions traveling to New York to play the Giants. Giants coming off a win against Houston, as we talked about. Houston really not really impressing anyone. The Giants just getting it done, really managing the game well, pulling out the victory at home. And now they welcome a Lions team that has a very great offense. So it'll be interesting. I feel like the Giants will be tested in this game because, the Giants, they haven't really played a good offense since Seattle. And, the offense has not looked great or anything. I feel like they're a receiver away from being great. Wink, wink. And I feel I feel as if this Lions team can really give them some trouble on the defense. I feel like the matchup is going to be how this Lions offense matches up against the defense for the Giants. DeAndre Swift's going to be healthy, but we'll see what he's looking like because it's been kind of the more of the Jamal Williams show sometimes. So there's some concern for DeAndre Swift there, but it'll definitely be how this Lions offense is able to produce against the Giants squad. Last time we saw a good defense play this Lions team, they got shut out on the road against New England, and that could definitely be a tale of what's to come on Sunday between these two teams. But all right, look, what are you looking for in this game between a good Lions offense versus a pretty solid Giants defense?
Yeah, I just wanted to share something funny real quick. The Bills Twitter account posted about the move to Detroit, and the Lions Twitter account quote tweeted it and said, "Important numbers are by the phone. Lock up when you leave, and please don't break the tables." I thought that was funny, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Lions' offense has been great at times this season, but then against better defenses, they've struggled, or they struggled when they've been without Amon-Ra and Swift earlier in the year. The Giants coming off a game where they gave Saquon Barkley 35 carries, which is pretty insane for one game. But you figure they're going to rely on him again against the Lions' run defense, which he should run all over, at least on paper, and they should be able to control the game in that regard. I was close picking the Lions. They're kind of a sneaky team where in a game where they can score a lot in a shootout, they could come away with a win like they did against the Bears last week. But I think the Giants defense will be just good enough to, hold them, not shut them out, but limit them enough to where, Barkley and Daniel Jones will be able to do enough to help the Giants win. I think it's going to be close. I think the Lions are going to have a pretty good game offensively, just not enough to beat the Giants on the road.
Yeah, I feel like this game is going to be a lot closer on in the scoreboard than a lot of people think right now. You mentioned this Lions offense, and in a shootout, they can definitely win some games. I mean, they looked really good last week against the Bears when they had that win, by 1 point because Carlos Santos missed that extra point on the road. And, they can definitely score and move the ball down the field. And, it'll definitely be tested against this Giants defense that, can really, limit, downfield passes and, a run game can be stalled there. And, they're definitely greater and better in the secondary. But, I definitely want to pick the upset with the Lions on the road, but I feel like the Giants will do just enough to get it done at home, whether or not that's a last-second field goal or a last-second stand on fourth down. I feel like that's definitely going to be evident in this game, and the Giants escape the upset from the Lions this week, even though the Lions will definitely give them this Giants team all they can handle. I expect a very good game, though, potentially maybe back and forth and low scoring, maybe taking the under in this game as well. But definitely a Giants squeaking by this Lions team. Still in this morning slate here, the Panthers, struggling Panthers here. Nothing really going their way. They go up to Baltimore to play the Ravens coming off their bye. Excuse me. The Ravens, look, I mean, the run game is pretty stalled just because, Lamar Jackson is their run game. Once again, like Chicago Bears, J.K. Dobbins is currently out right now on IR. So it looks like, probably Kenyon Drake, Latavius Murray split is probably going to be in the works. I'm pretty sure Latavius Murray's on Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken.
He's on Denver now.
He's on Denver? Then who am I thinking about? Or maybe it is Drake, who's probably going to be that lead back. But
yeah, I mean, Gus Edwards had practice last 2 days, so he'll probably be back too.
Yeah, maybe a platoon in the backfield. They're still missing Mark Andrews. No word on him at this time. I believe he's not playing on Sunday. I don't know the health of Mark Andrews.
He practiced yesterday and today, so he has a chance.
Yeah, so there's a chance, but you never really know in the NFL. But this Ravens team, obviously, they still have Lamar Jackson. He's definitely going to be their main thing offensively. Defensively, they acquired, as we talked about, they acquired Roquan Smith, so they definitely got a lot better defensively. Marlon Humphrey's still there. They definitely know how to win games. Even though they struggled against the a Buccaneers team, a couple weeks ago, we saw them pull out the win on the road. So, Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team, they know how to get it done, and they know how to win games late when it matters. Obviously, coming up, it was pretty much a struggle for them to hold a lead and, hold all the way to the end of the game earlier in the season. I feel like they're, reversing that now, and they welcome a Panthers team that, offensively, not the strongest, obviously. No CMC, relying a lot on DJ Moore. It sounds like PJ Walker is going to be getting the start on Sunday as well. So we'll see how that connection looks. Dante Foreman looked really good last week against against the Falcons, but a different run defense in the Ravens. So definitely a more intriguing matchup there. We'll see how that looks. But Ari, what do you like in this game? Panthers obviously in kind of full rebuild mode now. Not really anything offensively. They have a steady defense, but that defense can definitely get exposed anytime, especially against Lamar Jackson, who is all over the field, all over the time. What do you like in this game between the Panthers and Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Baker under center with PJ Walker spraining his ankle, so that definitely worries me for the Panthers offense being able to move the ball consistently. I think it's going to be somewhat of a blowout for the Ravens. The Panthers' only hope, to keep it close is to get Deontay Foreman going early. But, you figure the Ravens are going to key on him and make Baker beat them. I still like Foreman as an RB2 for fantasy purposes just because of pure volume. He should see a lot of volume. But there is that concern, of the Ravens going up early and forcing them to abandon the run game. Like I said earlier, it sounds like they're going to get Mark Andrews and Gus Edwards back. For fantasy purposes, I'm not confident in that backfield if it's both Drake and Gus Edwards healthy. But they should get Mark Andrews back, barring any setbacks in the passing game, which obviously will help Lamar. Then they'll have Duvernay, also leading the receiving core with Rashad Bateman out for the season. And then, a lot of Lamar running, as always, as well. So I think that this game is definitely in the favor of the Ravens for, more than one reason. I'm hoping Foreman can be the one to keep the Panthers somewhat close in the game, but I definitely like the Ravens here, straight up.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be the Ravens' domination game. You mentioned they're starting to get healthier, as the season, is wrapping up. And, this Panthers team, obviously you mentioned PJ Walker spraining his ankle, so Baker Mayfield is going to get the start on Sunday. And, that unless they really get Dante Foreman going early in the first quarter, I really see the Ravens just dominating this game as well. You look at the Ravens and you see, Duvernay and that receiving core is going to have to step up with Rashad Bateman out for the season. And, Duvernay is definitely a deep threat. We've seen him, catch the deep ball on multiple occasions from Lamar Jackson and, starting to get more involved in the offense. And, I feel like that's going to continue into this week. And I feel like the Ravens are definitely going to get the win at home against a struggling Panthers team. And our final game in the morning on Sunday, the Commanders heading down to Houston to play the Texans. The Commanders, biggest win of the season, arguably, coming off a win against Philly on the road. Taylor Heineke, the quarterback, hero himself, having a magical season once again. There's so many questions from Ron Rivera about who's getting the start. He said there's no QB1s to be certain right now. Between Carson Wentz, who is returning from his finger injury off of IR, and then Taylor Heineke, who's been playing pretty much the best Commanders football of the season after a slow start for Washington. I mean, obviously the Texans pretty much one of the worst teams, not the worst team in football. Offensively, they stink. Well, let's be real here. All they have is Dameon Pierce, and they have Dameon Pierce for a reason because they're kind of building around him offensively, and so they definitely have a good run game. It'll be interesting to see how it's tested against the Commanders, who get potentially Chase Young back. So, definitely a lot of pressure for Davis Mills on the edge. especially in a Houston O line that is not really good at protecting Davis Mills and giving him time, and he doesn't have that much in the receiving core as well. So I definitely feel like this is a Commanders win on the road and put them over 500 for the first time. I believe this season, since I believe they went 1-0, but I'm not sure. But look, Ari, you look at the Commanders and they really established a dominant run game with Robinson and Gibson. Got Robinson potentially leading that backfield a little bit more. Terry McLaurin looked like that Terry McLaurin we saw, that top 10 Terry McLaurin that everyone's been talking about. 8 receptions for over 100 yards, and that offense really looked great under Taylor Heineke. But there's threats of Carson Wentz returning and kind of not messing it up, but maybe the flow is not as well as it was with Heineke. And then this Texans team offensively, all they have is Dameon Pierce. Wide receivers, who? Exactly. Brandon Cooks is the only guy there. And, he's been wanting out for so long. And, the Texans removed him as captain. And, there's just so many problems with that whole situation. What do you like in this game between the Commanders and the Texans?
Yeah, I mean, we talked Tuesday about how the Commanders have won, I believe it was 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, one of those two, with the one loss coming, the last second to the Vikings by 3 points. So they've been very, feisty and competitive the past month or so. And I think that continues against the Texans, where they should again be able to dominate with the run game, with Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and then McLaurin, I think, should have his way on the outside as well. Dameon Pierce has had big games, even in bad matchups this season. So I think that he'll still get, his looks, but I have no confidence really in the Texans passing offense. Nico Collins could have a decent game. He had a decent game last week. But at this point, I have no confidence in Brandon Cooks and really none in Davis Mills. I don't see the Commanders blowing them out. I don't think that they have the offense to blow a team out, but I think that they control this game pretty much from the start and still win pretty easily, even if the final score doesn't really, say that.
I agree with you there. I feel like this Texans team, excuse me, offensively, look, they have struggled to really get a pass game going, and really rely on Dameon Pierce. And sometimes even in bad losses, he looks great. And so I feel like if maybe they establish a dominant run game early, they may have an edge in this game. And then for the Commanders, you mentioned they haven't won convincingly, but I feel like they'll just control the game to get the win on the road here. And, you mentioned they've won pretty much 4 out of the last 5 with Heineke. So definitely a good groove going for this Commanders team, maybe not trying to mess it up with a potential return of Carson Wentz, but I like the Texans to lose at home. I don't think it's going to be a blowout as well, but the Commanders should definitely win somewhat comfortably on the road with their defense pretty much helping them along the way in this game. And now we're moving into the afternoon slot here. The first matchup we have is the Raiders and the Broncos, good old AFC West rivalry here. Raiders, obviously, look, it's getting worse and worse for this Raiders team. One of the worst in the league, pretty much, I believe. We've 2-8, if I'm not mistaken, or only 2 wins on the season for this Raiders team. Only coming off a loss, bad loss against the Colts at home. Now got to travel to Russell Wilson. And speaking of that team, I mean, there's been rumors that Russell Wilson is. Did you hear about this? Russell Wilson and his O-line are having problems because he's using Seahawks Audible. So, this man.
I saw it, but then Nathaniel Hackett shut that down today. So, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But, I mean, there's still so many problems with the Broncos offensively. Nothing is going their way. We saw Judy get carted off last week against the Titans for this Broncos team. That definitely was a big loss for them in that game. I believe there's still questions whether or not he's playing on Sunday if he's not already out. And then the Raiders, they love what Josh Jacobs is doing right now. He's definitely one of the top running backs on his on his prove it year. They did not give him the option, and and he's proven them wrong for not giving him that option. But around him, the defense, is not good right now, not at all. No run defense, no pass defense right now. And, it's kind of crazy. The Raiders have lost all of their first round picks, whether it's been cut or being arrested or something like that, or traded from like 2017 to now. This Raiders team is just kind of, they're just not good. Obviously Devontae Adams is good. Derek Carr is trying, but, you can't push a bus that's not moving. So that's kind of how I like to say it. But Ari, look, you have you have two really struggling teams. Broncos struggling offensively, Raiders struggling defensively. What's something got to give in this game? What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to like in this game. Jacobs and Adams should continue to do their thing. I think Cortland Sutton should have a pretty good game, especially if Judy is out, which it sounds like he's trending towards being out, but that's not official. But I mean, ultimately, it comes down for me is the Broncos' defense. Their defense has kept them in a lot of games, and they just kind of lost a lot of low-scoring games, like we saw last week, losing 17-10 to the Titans. I think here the Broncos' offense will be able to do just enough against Raiders' defense to be able to, pick up another win on the season. I don't think they're going to blow the Raiders out, especially in a divisional game. But I think Russell Wilson does just enough to beat the Raiders defense, and the Raiders defense, or the Broncos defense, I should say, will limit the Raiders offense ultimately. So I lean towards the Broncos at home here, but definitely not one of my more confident picks of the week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you here. I feel like this is definitely going to be, one of the just ugliest games of the week. Broncos struggling offensively. You mentioned Judy with his injury, it's looking like he's not going to play. So, just maybe the Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton show on Sunday for the Broncos. And then for the Raiders, look, it's just getting ugly over there. I don't really like picking in this game. I may just pick the total under, but I may lean toward the Broncos at home just because, it is a home game for Denver. And, this is a divisional game. So, these two teams know each other well in this AFC West rivalry. Moving on to a hopefully somewhat better game up in Minnesota, the Cowboys and the Vikings. Vikings, they come off their biggest win of the season in Buffalo. That offense is definitely proving why it's definitely scary. Justin Jefferson, Himothy, whatever you want to say, he's doing things that we've never seen before, especially with that amazing catch last week. When you look at the Cowboys, they definitely struggled to get a win or pretty much hold on to the lead against the Packers last week on the road. It looked like they definitely were in control of that game heading into the fourth quarter, up 28-14, and then 17 unanswered later, and then they're losing 31-28 in overtime. Definitely some questionable play calls for Mike McCarthy, later in that game. And, even though they did not have Zeke last week, I feel like, definitely this Cowboys team should have got the win on the road, to stop that the surge of the Packers offense somehow coming to light with Christian Watson getting 3 touchdowns. But look, this is definitely a more intriguing matchup. You have the Vikings 8-1, tied for first place in the NFC behind the Eagles, and then you have the Cowboys who look good, but just did not execute last week. In not a must win, but definitely would have been a bigger win, especially not only in a playoff race, but in a divisional race where they're now sitting in third place behind both the Giants and the Packers, Giants and the Eagles. All right, look, the Cowboys are getting Zeke back. I mean, it may not be huge, play for them, but obviously with Tony Pollard being the main guy. But, Justin Jefferson versus Trayvon Diggs 2.0. I'm excited. These two players are arguably some of the best at their position. So young. What do you like in this game between, Vikings offense that seems unstoppable and a Cowboys offense that's really starting to get under their own feet and move down the field?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I think that getting Zeke back might hurt them. I think they should just unleash Tony Pollard at this point and let him keep his role. But, they're not going to do that with the money they're paying him, with Jerry Jones' commitment to Elliott. So I think that his return might, I don't think it's going to help them. I'll just say that. And then, the Vikings, added TJ Hawkinson. He's been great since they brought him in. Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, obviously phenomenal players. Vikings, we talked about before last week them needing that marquee win. They got that, and now they have a chance to pick up 2 in a row here. Now, if they can beat the Cowboys, I think that should be a pretty exciting, close game. Obviously, all the talks on the Vikings offense, and for good reason, but their defense has also been really solid the past month or so, maybe a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, I think just given what we saw last week from the Cowboys and the Vikings, and then the Vikings here coming back home to Minnesota, I think the Vikings do pull it off over the Cowboys in a tight, close game. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring, even though both teams have been pretty good this year. I think the offenses will be good enough to still score, a good amount of points. But I like the Vikings overall offense a little bit more, and so I like them here at home.
Yeah, I definitely would say the Vikings have the better edge in here. Obviously, offensively, this is going to be one of the better offensive games of the year. CeeDee Lamb coming off a career game, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against the Packers, now going up against, Vikings defense that allows Stephon Diggs just pretty much eat them up all over the field. And before finally Josh Allen getting intercepted by Patrick Peterson to end the game. And obviously the Cowboys, their defense, struggled last week, and, the Vikings offense was one of the best, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that the Cowboys are going to have a bounce back game and, win a big game on the road against this Vikings team. The Vikings, I feel like they're going to be riding high off of their win last week that, they're not sleep on this Cowboys team, but, maybe underestimate their run game a little bit, and maybe Pollard breaks out for some big runs on the ground. And I want it. This is my upset of the week. I have the Cowboys on the road beating the Vikings in M&T Bank. I mean, yeah, you can call it an upset just on the records, but you would.
I think the Cowboys are the favorite. I'm pretty sure.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are the favorite in this game. And let me double check here. And oh my God, yeah, that's right. The Cowboys. I mean, it's slight. It's only 1.5 points, so that means it's a toss up anyway. But I do like the Cowboys on the road. I just feel like they have a bounce back game and maybe catch the Vikings sleeping in this game. And then the final afternoon game for Sunday, the Bengals and Steelers. This game was the Sunday night game, but it got flexed out due to the flex in of the Chiefs and Chargers, which is the new Sunday night game. But Bengals-Steelers, good old AFC North rivalry. This Bengals team obviously still missing Jamar Chase. He could be returning, sooner than anticipated, I guess. But, they still have Joe Mixon. They still have T. Higgins. Those are definitely 2 big names on the offense that the Bengals rely on besides Joe Burrow. And the Steelers offense is kind of stuck right now. There's still questions on whether or not Najee Harris is the guy. And, they gave Jaylen Warren a bunch of time last week, and he looked really good last week in their win over Saints last week at home. Now they welcome a good Bengals team that, these 2 teams, obviously the week 1 matchup where, that game pretty much went down to the wire. And, the Steelers stole a game in Cincinnati in a pretty much one of the best games of the season. Now the rematch, just 10 weeks later in Pittsburgh, going to be cold night, in Pittsburgh. Ari, look, offensively, you look at the Steelers, and there's really not much to really look at. Obviously, there's still Deontay Johnson. We talked about Chase Claypool being traded. Najee Harris has been struggling pretty much all season to get a good game going for him. They still have Kenny Pickett, who, is struggling as well pretty much. No really consistent quarterback play offensively. But defensively, the reason they beat the Bengals week 1 is because of their defense. And, now their TJ Watt is coming back, and now he's healthy, so it's a rematch again. Minka's still in that secondary. He had plenty of interceptions and turnovers forced. Is this going to be the same result of week 1, or what do you expect differently in this game between the Bengals and Steelers, and what do you like offensively?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that week 1 game. I believe the Bengals had 5 turnovers in that game, and the Steelers still only won by, I think, 1 point, I believe it was, on like a missed extra point. So, the Bengals offensive line struggled really mightily early in the season. They've been a little bit better as of late. Obviously, no Jamar Chase, probably still, but I mean, still Higgins, Boyd, Mixon, Hurst, they still have more than enough, for Joe Burrow to get it done. I think the Bengals do get their, quote unquote revenge here against the Steelers on the road. I just have no confidence in the Steelers offense. I heard that they might limit Najee this week, so we might see another game where Warren sees, maybe close to 50-50 in the share, or at least close to that. But even then, still not enough for the Steelers offense to beat the Bengals offense. I think the Steelers defense can possibly limit the Bengals a tad bit, but not enough to where the Steelers cannot score them offensively. So I like the Bengals here to get to even the season series between these two teams and take it in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like the Steelers offense is just not going to be doing anything to really get their groove going against this Bengals team that, even though they lost Jamar Chase, their offense is still one of the best in the league, putting up a high score of 42 against Carolina, and, what they've done with and without Jamar Chase. And then you mentioned Najee Harris struggles so much that, it's looking like, Jaylen Warren may get a lot of playing time, a lot of snap counts against the Bengals as well. And I definitely favor the Bengals. But, I feel like, even though last time the Steelers forced 5 turnovers against that offense, I feel like it's going to be something different. And I feel like Bengals team gets the revenge win on the road against the Steelers in what should be a very ugly game offensively, potentially for both teams. And then heading into Sunday night, we have the Chiefs and Chargers. This was the afternoon game at 1:25, but then got 4:25 Eastern. But then it got moved to the Sunday night slate. Definitely a better game. The Chargers coming off a tough loss last Sunday night, ironically, against the Niners on the road. Now they welcome pretty much one of the best teams in the league, the Chiefs, who, obviously there was breaking news about a few minutes ago that McCole Hardman's going on IR with his injury. So, they definitely lose a receiver, but, Kadarius Toney has emerged as a star for the Chiefs after his first game last week against the Jets. Then as well, Holmes is still, these two teams met back in week 2 on Thursday night, and what a game that was. That 99-yard reception off of Justin Herbert, and then, Herbert trying to come back, but, the Chiefs get the win, in a very close game between these two teams. This is definitely going to be interesting to see how this Chargers team, can do it with so many people out and injured, very, very weak in terms of health. And then the Chiefs obviously still dominating in the AFC once again. Ari, what do you like in this game, and what are you hoping for? What do you expect?
Yeah, so yesterday and today, Wednesday and Thursday, Keenan Allen, Michael Williams are both limited in practice. So obviously getting those two guys back would be huge, for Herbert and the Chargers offense. I think getting at least one of those two back is the only way the Chargers have a chance of winning this game. They're already 2 back of the division, and they need this win to even the season series, as you said. So I think that they have to have this win if they want to compete so for the division in the AFC West. And then, their defense is obviously banged up, so the Chiefs and Mahomes will, do what they do every week against every opponent pretty much. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs right now, but pending if the Chargers get both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams back healthy for Sunday night, then I might lean towards the Chargers at that point.
Yeah, sorry. I guess we're having some connection problems, but
like
I don't know if you can hear me now. I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you
Yeah.
now. I think you were saying that, if the Chargers get healthy again with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, then, it may be a closer game. But, you talked about evening up the season series. And, last time we saw these two teams, that was all the way back in week 2 at the beginning of the season. And what a close game that we saw, and, really back and forth. And then now Sunday night this week, the Chiefs definitely a lot healthier. and then the Chargers. But you never really know. Potentially, if Keenan Allen can play, same for Mike Williams. If they can come back, then they may have a huge impact. Herbert finally getting his 2 receivers that he hasn't had pretty much since the honestly. He hasn't had these 2 all season. I would like to take the Chiefs on the road as well, just because I feel like this Chiefs team knows how to beat the Chargers. Even with Austin Eckler being the X factor in the backfield and all that stuff, I'm taking the Chiefs to win it on the road on Sunday night to beat the Chargers. And I think it's going to be one of the better games for this week in the NFL slate. Definitely going to be interesting to see if Keenan Allen and both Mike Williams are healthy. Playing on Sunday night, because if they are, then that definitely can be a huge difference for a really struggling offense in the Chargers to really have your 2 lead receivers back on the field for the first time all season. And then we head into the Monday night Mexico City game. Here we go, the Niners and Cardinals. This is an NFC West showdown going down in Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. One of the few international games as well. We obviously had the London games. We had the Germany game last weekend. And now we have Mexico City this weekend. For the Cardinals, obviously, there's a question on whether or not Kyler Murray is coming back. It's looking like he may be coming back on Monday night, as well as Hollywood Brown. He's back off of IR. He's back in practice. That's definitely a big get, but a big loss for this Cardinals team, losing Zach Ertz on Sunday, season-ending injury. I believe it was a knee injury that took him out against the Rams. And then the Niners, obviously, they looked like one of the best teams, and they look like one of the best teams in the NFC. They have a great defense led by Nick Bosa, still Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Jimmy Ward, the secondary. Up front, Trent Williams, is still doing that thing, being one of the best left tackles in the game. We have Christian McCaffrey, even though we saw a lot of carries last week from Elijah Mitchell. The receiving core with Deebo Samuel, who is, not having as dominant as a year last year, but still a huge X factor. Same for George Kittle, even though he's more in the blocking game than in the receiving game. Ari, look, this is definitely going to be a winner, pretty much season ender for the Cardinals right here. The Niners have a chance to get first place in the NFC West for the first time in a very long time for them since the Seahawks took over and went on their surge. What are you looking for in this game in Mexico City between the Cardinals and Niners?
Yeah, I actually think that the Cardinals have a better chance in this game if they have McCoy in the center and his kind of quick passing type of play style rather than the hampered Kyler Murray. I believe it was last year Colt McCoy actually beat the 49ers. Obviously, I think they were a little bit more banged up at that time. They weren't as good as they were right now. But I think that Colt McCoy and his kind of getting the ball out of his hands quick kind of mentality against his pass rushes would be better for the Cardinals if he was under center. But either way, I think the Niners are going to be too strong on both sides of the ball. It's a divisional game again, so I think it's going to be close. And we've seen the Cardinals defense really show out at times this year and then look really bad at times. They've been really hot and cold all year. But the Niners are getting, more healthy. Another week of having Deebo and Christian McCaffrey on the field together. I think the Niners are going to take this. They're supposed to have by far the home field advantage in terms of the crowd as well. I think the Niners are going to pretty much end the Cardinals season, for the most part with the win here.
I feel like this is the Niners with the game to lose here. I feel like this Niners team.
Back in a minute.
Yeah, of course. Niners, obviously, one of the better teams in this when you look at it on paper. The Niners, obviously, Deebo Samuel, we talked about him being the X factor. They're getting Christian McCaffrey, really under in that West Coast style of offense in that system. Even though they still have Elijah Mitchell in the backfield, George Kittle is a great blocker, obviously a threat when he's receiving as well. And then, as already mentioned, I feel like this team is a lot better and has a better chance with Colt McCoy under center than with Kyler Murray because, they know how to contain Kyler Murray and stop the explosive plays while, Colt McCoy is a great passer, pocket passer. He can definitely throw the ball and, maybe with guys like DeAndre Hopkins, on the routes, I feel like he definitely could beat that Niners secondary. I want to take this Cardinals team, just because, not a Niners fan at all, but on paper, this Niners game should be all dominant from the San Francisco side. I feel like the Niners should win this game and will win this game in Mexico City. In a game where I think it's going to be, very interesting to see what the fan crowd's like. I remember, I forgot what year it was. I think it was the Brock Osweiler year with the person with the laser pointer in the face of, I believe it was Oz or whoever it was at quarterback at the time. That could be an X factor. Maybe we'll see, but I definitely think the Niners should definitely take this game in the neutral Mexico City. And finally, we have a little bit of a not personal game, but personal interest involved. Washington State, obviously my school, and obviously the school I write for and report for, going up against Ari's school in football this weekend at University of Arizona. We wanted to give a little bit of a prediction here because obviously, we both have intrigue sides. The Arizona Wildcats are trying to become bowl eligible for the first time in, I believe, a very long time. Ari, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Definitely it's kind of winner not go bowling for this Arizona team. Meanwhile, for the Cougs, coming off a win against Arizona State to become bowl eligible. So, definitely a lot of personal, not throwing any shade over there, but a lot of personal animosity going to be on the sideline, obviously, for Arizona, as former Wazoo quarterback Jane DeLaura, gets his first start against his team. We saw Nick Rolovich, the clown himself, on Twitter. I'm sorry, I can say that because he is. He was talking about maybe going to the game on Saturday. We'll see what that's like. But, all right, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, we know how offensively Arizona is one of the best in the conference. They have a great dominant pass game, with Jacob Cowing and Tate McMillan on either side. They can definitely beat you on both sides. Definitely, that's how Arizona has pretty much kept them in games this year, just with their high potent offense. What are you looking for in this game against the Cougs, obviously, who have a very good pass rush defense? Definitely, I think second in the conference for sacks and tackles for loss, and just pretty dominant defensively.
Yeah, and I think putting the storyline aside of JDL facing his former team, I'm looking forward to seeing just how he matches up with the Washington State defense. You mentioned how good the Cougars defense has been. They're the only team to allow less than 20 points per game this season in the Pac-12. And then Arizona is like top 5, I believe, in total offense in the Pac-12. And they're like top 20, 25 in the whole country and offensively. Jaden DeLaura is the only reason really why Arizona even has 4 wins. They have the receiving trio of Jacob Cowing and the freshman Tatairo McMillan and then Dorian Singer. And then they've really, for the first time in a while, really since the Gronkowski days, have passed the tight ends more at Tanner McLachlan. And then they've seen Michael Wiley, running back, really take a step forward. Early in the season, they were running more of a committee approach, but Wiley's kind of taken over the workhorse role. I think last week, I believe he had 21 carries and 60 receptions, so kind of that kind of workhorse role. Obviously Cougars defense is great, but looking at their schedule, the two teams that they played that rank ahead of Arizona offensively in the conference, I believe it was Oregon. I think it was Oregon and USC. They gave up 44 to Oregon and 30 to USC. So I'm interested to see how Arizona can do as another high-powered Pac-12 offense facing the Cougars defense. And then defensively for Arizona, they've really had a lot of freshmen step up as of late. If you look at just the stats, they're bottom 2 to 3 in every category, but they've been a lot better as of late. Last week against UCLA in the upset win, they were the first team to hold UCLA to less than 30 points on the season. They were pressuring Dorian Thompson-Robinson all game. Freshman linebacker Jacob Manu was freshman player of the week with his 10 tackles in that game. And then just had a lot of freshmen really step up as of late. The defensive corner Johnny Nansen said early in the season that he wanted to rotate a lot of defensive linemen and to keep them all fresh. And he wasn't able to do that early in the season because of injuries and, freshmen not being able to step in right away. But, at this point in the season, with them all being acclimated fully, He was able to do that really for the first time last week. He did like a little bit a couple weeks ago, but really for the first time last week against UCLA. And they had constant pressure on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and now they're facing, a similar quarterback and Cameron Ward, who has the ability to run. So I'm interested to see how they can kind of carry that momentum into this week. So that's my side.
Yeah, and over here on the Coug side, obviously we know how to play against JDL. Obviously, he likes to scramble out of the pocket a lot. And for this Cougars team, it's definitely going to be limiting his scrambling ability. That's how he finds the plays off if there's a broken play or whatever. But we have two edges on. We have a big rotational edge group with Brandon Jackson, Quinn Rov, who was in the medical tent but should be healthy. A pretty dominant front. It's pretty much the matchup of the game, seeing how this Cougars defensive line front gets to the Arizona offensive line, seeing how JDL is, limited, because once he is limited, that's when he struggles against. We saw the game against Utah where he struggled to get an offense going. That Utah defense was so dominant. I believe that's kind of where the Cougars are in terms of their defense, maybe top 3, top 4 as well. But and then offensively for the Cougs, the run game has been one of the bigger issues throughout the season. Running back from Nakia Watson, the redshirt junior, the transfer from Wisconsin, he didn't really get a good game going until that Stanford game, where he really got his feet under him, rushing for over 160 yards. And then last week against Arizona State, having a more similar game, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns on the board. And then you mentioned, bottom 2 and everything. We allowing over 200 yards a game on the ground. I feel that's what's going to be the key for this Wazoo team to really get an offense going, because because Arizona obviously they know how to throw the ball, and how Jaden Laura scrambles out, finds his receivers downfield, or he can turn a 3rd and 17 into a 1st and 10, just like that. So definitely going to be intriguing to see how this defense for the Cougs, is able to handle his scrambling abilities, finding guys like Tate McMillan downfield or Cowing, and especially trying to stop the run. Cougars have been, not the greatest stopping the run. The Arizona State running back, I think Xavier Valade, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the ASU guy, he definitely ran through this team, but that was just, a late surge. But the Cougars, one big struggle that they had all year is starting and finishing strong. And, we saw last week Arizona with that comeback and, that win on the road. So, yeah. Well, Arizona State played it close, but, definitely Arizona, with that dominant win on the road against UCLA, the Cougars will definitely have to play a complete game from start to finish if they want to prevent any comeback, if there's anything like that, or hold on for a win or something like that. So that's definitely going to be one of the bigger keys for the Cougs, just playing a complete game for us to finish, and maybe getting that offense going early to really match with that Arizona offense that can really score quickly and have a field day with Jane DeLaura in the not only behind the pocket but also on the run and his scrambling ability to get outside the pocket and get some big yards. So I'm excited for this game. I believe kickoff is 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 11 a.m. over here. So early morning over here, but it's on the Pac-12 network. We're definitely going to be watching that game, obviously, for our respective schools.
What's your score prediction?
I'm thinking it's going to be somewhat close. I'm thinking it's going to be Wazoo 30, ASU ASU. I know. I'm going to go Washington State 30. I'm going to go Arizona maybe 27 or 28. I feel like Arizona is going to be keeping Wazoo in check. This offense, we talked about how explosive they can be with Cowing and McMillan and Wiley, and you mentioned your tight end and all that stuff. And I feel like that's going to be one of the reasons why Arizona really is keeping themselves in that game. But I feel like Wazoo at the end will get the win. It's going to be a close win, but I believe Wazoo 30, Arizona 28.
I'm going to go similar, 34-30 Arizona. So similar score. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to find out what happens next week in our episode Tuesday. We will be coming back, obviously, Tuesday. We're going to have a shortened week next week because Thanksgiving's on Thursday, and obviously we have plans to spend some time with our loved ones for the holiday. So only one episode next week on Tuesday, and we're going to be covering everything. It's going to be the whole NFL slate. Next week is rivalry week for college football. So some of the bigger games as we get closer to championship weekend, MLB free agency is pretty much getting underway with the Mariners trading for Teoscar Hernandez yesterday. and what's left to come. NBA, let's not talk about the Warriors yet. And then college basketball is really starting to get under their own feet as well. So, Ari, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, yeah, I think that's it for today.
Yeah, but we will see you guys on Tuesday for our jam-packed episode with college football and NFL. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, dogs, parents, neighbors, whoever you want to share it with. We're just doing this out of our day because we love talking about sports and, whatever we want to talk about in terms of fantasy football and all that stuff. So we all thank you guys for the support. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys on Tuesday. Jam-packed Thanksgiving episode. See you guys.